So thanks again for tuning in. Speaking about Chapter 5, A Brief History of African Americans in the larger story of healing America's narratives. In the previous episode, we spoke about the trajectory of constitutional amendments and some laws passed post-Civil War. And I'd like to begin, we spoke about the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. I'd like to begin today's episode in light of the Civil War, Reconstruction, and then the period of lynching and Jim Crow laws and other violence against formerly enslaved peoples, Black Americans, that in 1964 and 65, it was still necessary for the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65 to be passed. Consider that. Consider the trajectory from the end of the Civil War forward, or even from 1619 forward. Why was it in this country, which prides itself on freedom and equality, that a Civil Rights Act and a Voting Rights Act were necessary in the early and mid 1960s? So just as a specific example of that, in the Plessy versus Ferguson Supreme Court ruling in 1896, the ruling was that separate but equal schools and other public services were okay. In 1954, the Supreme Court in Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka held that Plessy was really a violation of the 14th Amendment. And people, still debate those two cases. That's not what I'm here to do today. But after the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus Topeka, in 1954, a young 14-year-old son of Alabama shareholders read about that decision in a newspaper, and he wrote the following some years later, based on Brown versus Topeka. Everything was going to change now. No longer would I have to ride a broken down bus almost 40 miles each day to attend classes at a training school with hand-me-down books and supplies. Come fall, I'd be riding a state-of-the-art bus to a state-of-the-art school in an integrated school. End quote. By his sophomore year in high school, he realized that, quote, by climbing onto the same beat-up school bus and making the same 20-mile trip to the same segregated high school I'd attended the year before, nothing in my life had changed, end quote. So that young kid would later be known in his life as Congressman John Lewis, whom we lost several years ago. So the trajectory, again, of equal rights, civil rights for formerly enslaved peoples in the United States has been a long, slow one, and it's not really complete yet. So we'll continue to provide some specific examples and evidence in future episodes. As always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you the next time.